Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. You know, one question I ask every guest on Everyday Martial Artist is about their favorite martial arts book. And there's never been one quite like Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, described as the art of war for the martial arts. Martial Theory helps any martial artist or instructor take their understanding and teaching to the next level. And at martialtheoryU.com, you'll find a global community with instructor groups, Q&A with Steve, live events, and demonstrations to help you apply martial theory directly to your training. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Find Martial Theory on Amazon, and when you join martialtheoryU.com, use discount code EverydayMA for 20% off. That's under $20 a month for life. That's martialtheoryU.com, code EverydayMA. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts and sometimes other stuff they're involved in. My guest today is a pioneering martial artist and leader whose career has helped reshape combat sports, self-defense, and personal empowerment. She began training in martial arts at just 5 years old, studying Shaolin Kung Fu before transitioning to taekwondo, where she rose to the highest levels of international competition. In 1988, she made history at the Seoul Olympic Games, becoming the first American and the first woman to win an Olympic gold medal in taekwondo as the sport made its debut. Over the course of her career, she earned national, Pan-American, World University, and World Championship titles, and was later inducted into the Taekwondo Hall of Fame, and was named one of the greatest taekwondo athletes of the 20th century. After retiring from competition, she shifted her focus to leadership and advocacy, opening her own martial arts school and breaking barriers for women in martial arts instruction. Today, she continues that mission as the CEO of Pave Prevention, working with organizations to promote personal safety, healthier workplace culture, and empowered performance through evidence-based, trauma-informed programs. Please welcome my guest today, Arlene Limas. How are you doing today, Arlene?
I am doing great. Thank you, Brian. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I get that a lot. I like to do research and make it sound good. And thank you. I know this is something we've been chatting about for probably 3 or 4 years, and I'm glad our schedules finally connected and we were able to do this. I've been excited to chat with you for a while, and I'm looking forward to learning more about you.
Great.
So what we do with all my guests, I mentioned you started at a young age, but I want to know what led to that. I want to know where that first interest in martial arts came from, kind of that spark that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Well, I have 4 older brothers, and
Okay.
And my father, I will circle back to that, but he was a boxer most of his in his younger life.
Oh, cool.
And so between my dad already feeling very comfortable with combatives, I'll say, and my oldest brother, Arnold Jr., starting in martial arts, he motivated the rest of the family to get involved in martial arts as well. So he started in Shaolin Kung Fu under Grandmaster Kwon in Chicago.
Okay.
And then the rest of my brothers started. And then I kind of tagged along as, I'd like to say, almost like a mascot,
Yeah.
because this was pre-Bruce Lee craze. So there weren't really kids programs. There weren't really women involved in martial arts at that time. So yeah, I was the only female that I saw in the school, and I definitely was the only kid in the school, only non-adult in the school. So it was a bunch of men and me kind of running around as a mascot. That's how it started.
So then how was that being the only kid? How different was it when like the instructor has the adults doing techniques? I mean, did they have to adjust it for obviously someone much shorter? Were they down on their knees to make it work better since there was no other kids in the class?
I think they just kind of let me do my own thing, to be honest.
Nice.
I think they just, kind of kept an eye on me, made sure I wasn't hurting myself in any way. But they let me do at 5 years old as much as I could do, and sometimes I'd come home so sore. My mom had shared with me that, I, have like cramps in my stomach, and I would just be trying to push it too much. I was 5. So, yeah, I mean, I think they just kind of looked out for me, and whatever I could pick up from watching people. I don't know that I got formal instruction until maybe a year and a half later, when the Bruce Lee movies did hit and really martial arts exploded in Chicago and across the country, across the world probably.
Yeah.
And then there were kid-specific, children-specific classes. So that was about 6.5, 7 years old when that kind of happened. So I kind of tagged along for about a year, and then things built up around me and my training.
You talked about coming home sore. I didn't think kids got sore when they were that young. I thought kids were just bouncy and elastic and never got sore.
Oh, well, when you're just like doing leg lifts and at that time, you have to understand martial arts was much different than it is now.
Yes.
I mean, classes were 2-3 hours a night. It was, just a lot of conditioning, a lot of old school training, and hitting bags that were filled up with rocks rather than, rags or something, and a lot of sparring. Of course, I wasn't sparring, but I was watching a lot of the sparring at that age. But yeah, it was a night. You just go and you're there like from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then you go home.
That's cool. That's funny that you mentioned the heavy bags with rocks. I remember I tried making my first heavy bag when me and my friends were in middle school, and we just took this old green army duffel bag and essentially emptied the sand from our sandbox in there, not realizing the thing was going to weigh like 200 pounds and like hitting a brick. So
yeah,
probably didn't get much use out of it.
It was always a little bit of dark humor to watch a new person come into the school, and they'd kind of walk around the bag for a little bit, not really realizing what it would feel like to hit a rock bag.
Yeah.
And then they'd inevitably throw some type of kick or punch to the bag, and then you could just see like, ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, I wish somebody would have told them not to take that shot.
Yeah. Wow. So you said at first when you started, you didn't get to do the sparring and stuff. What age did they let that start happening where you got to do the sparring?
Well, once again, once things started picking up, martial arts gained in popularity after the Bruce Lee craze, then there were kid-specific classes. So then I could spar, right? I could spar with other kids my age and things like that. Yeah, even competing in tournaments at like 8 and 9 years old, already starting that young. Now, the divisions weren't as complex as they are now and as comprehensive as they are now, where 5 and 6 year olds compete, 7 and 8 year old competes. They have weight divisions, they have everything, they have belt divisions. Then it was like 13 and under. So, and boys and girls. So it was no equipment. I started competing pre-safety equipment, so pre-June Ree's great innovations of safety equipment.
Okay.
I remember wearing these makeshift pads that were used for like football on my forearms and on my shins to protect me, not to protect anyone else. So yeah, it was. I feel very fortunate to kind of started in that and been able to see things like that in the United States when martial arts was growing, and then to see where we're at now, where we have electronic scoring. And I mean, just, it's kind of like in music, being able to say that you've listened to 78-inch vinyl and now you're listening, to streaming. Yeah. Like, that's how I feel my life has been through martial arts, to be able to see all of those things.
That is cool. Do you remember some of those first few tournaments? Did you do sparring? Did you do forms? Did they have, I'm assuming probably not weapons for kids back then, but, did you take to the competition right away at that young age?
The first tournament I went to, I won. I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember very clearly because it was one of the rare events that my dad took me instead of my mom. My mom was actually hospitalized at the time, having some surgery. And so my dad took me, and I won 3rd place.
Nice.
And so I remember at that time, they didn't let kids into hospitals. You had to be, I think, 16 or something to be able to go into a hospital room. And so they brought my mom to the window, and I stood my dad put me on top of our car, and I held my trophy up and showed my mom from her hospital window.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was my first tournament. I fell in love with it. I cried many times throughout the tournament, but I still made it through and managed to win third place, and I was hooked.
Okay. What are some things you remember about that first instructor in Kung Fu, and kind of what stood out about maybe like the way they taught, and some things that you really remember about that kind of drew you in, made you want to keep going back?
Well, Chi Tai, Grandmaster Chi Tai, TSAI, he was such an innovator. He was very well respected as a martial artist and as a teacher, the students that he produced. And he just really encouraged us he found a way to pull out of all of us what worked for us and what worked for our bodies. So he didn't limit us by saying you had to do it this way, even though your flexibility didn't allow you to do it that way. He allowed us to find our own ways to make techniques work. I think that, a lot of martial arts instructors really limit their students by making them, this is the way we've done it for so long, this is how you have to do it. Where Master Tai his approach was quite different, I would say, in that sense. I recognize it now, being removed from it, that's what I was allowed to do. But as a kid, I just was, doing what I was doing. Another thing that I would say is I'm very glad the way that I started. I started in the soft style and then transitioned to a hard style.
Okay.
I don't know that I would have been as successful starting in a hard style and then trying to pick up the fluidity of a soft style. So that was a plus. And just, having my family involved in it, having my brothers involved in it, that was also a big plus for me. And Master Tai has since passed. He passed a few years back, but he really was quite innovative.
Did he go by Johnny?
Yes, Johnny
Okay.
Tai.
I've actually had many guests talk about him.
Yeah. And for me, for whatever reason, whatever he saw in me, whatever connection he felt in me, I felt genuine love from him. He really embraced and was so proud of me. And he was a very important person. I think it's very important that we have people believe in us other than our parents. And I would have to say that, Master Tai was probably the first person that believed in me and made me feel like I could do special things.
Nice. That is awesome. As many of my guests talk about it, finding a good instructor, finding that right instructor, that right fit is so important. Because so many people get turned off because they go to the wrong instructor. Luckily, you found that good one right away. So that makes a huge difference. How long did you stay at that school?
I still consider myself a student of that system.
Nice.
Even though, Master Tai has passed away, his younger son, who technically is my junior, is now leading up the organization and, trying to keep us as connected as we possibly can be as everyone moves and grows apart and schools open and unfortunately close. But yeah, so I will forever consider myself a Shaolin Kung Fu student and one of Grandmaster Tai's system students.
Nice.
Yeah, that stays. That doesn't ever change.
That's good. So what made you seek another style and want to, switch to Taekwondo? And what did you specifically go looking for Taekwondo, or were you just looking for something different to add in? How did that happen?
Well, really early on, even while I was with Master Tai, the only tournaments in the Chicago area really were Taekwondo tournaments.
Okay.
So we would, first when we started going with our Kung Fu uniforms, they would say, out, you can't compete here. So then Master Tai would say, okay, we'll just change our uniforms and we'll wear their uniforms and we'll go and compete because we want to compete. So to compete in those tournaments early on in those days in Chicago, we would just, dress the part and compete in Taekwondo tournaments as Kung Fu stylists. So I had always competed in the early on Taekwondo style. That changed a little when it got to the Olympics, but more of like the ITF style was very popular in Chicago. And then that kind of morphed into like the open style, which still was, the majority of people who were competing there were Taekwondo and karate people. traditional karate people. So you had, Grandmaster Robert Trias's lineage all competing in the Chicago area, Bob Bowles and John Nene and Burley Wagner and all those folks, running tournaments. So as a Kung Fu stylist, there weren't really Kung Fu style tournaments. So competing in different styles under different rules was, just what we did if we wanted to compete.
Okay.
I didn't seek out those Taekwondo tournaments. That was really it. And so all those old school kind of Korean masters, they saw me at like 7 years old and 9 years old and 10 years old. They saw me competing locally all that time. Okay. So when I, in a sense, came back to it as an Olympic sport, as an Olympic style sport, many of them already knew me locally.
Okay. When you decided to focus on Taekwondo, was that because of the Olympics or was that before that?
Yeah, I was actually about to retire from sport martial arts and focus on, NCAA level sports. So softball at a college level, basketball at a college level. That's what my goal was. I was already playing at DePaul University, softball. So when I was approached by some of the Taekwondo folks in the Chicago area and saying, Arlene, your style still works here. We think you could win here. Why don't you just come? The rules are a little different, but you've had such success in the open circuit with NASCA. Just try it out. So I tried out a regional tournament that was at Triton Junior College outside of Chicago in one of the suburbs. And I just went, wow, this is the challenge I'm looking for. Because I was almost like, okay, I've kind of hit my limit with NASCA. I've achieved the things that, I want to achieve. I don't see myself going to 12 tournaments a year and A ratings and double A ratings. And it wasn't as exciting and it motivating to me at that point. But when I fought that regional tournament, I was just like, okay, this is some challenge for me, because I went into that tournament and I scored quite frequently with my front leg to the head. But because this is to the knockout, I had envisioned myself being able to do a lot more damage. Okay. And then as I got through that match, I'm like, oh, okay, so that I'm not hitting as hard as I thought I was. And I'm tired. I'm breathing heavy. Wow. These 3-minute rounds are getting to me. Yeah. And it just really sparked something in me that, brought me back to being excited about martial arts competition again. And so, yeah, it was 100%. As soon as I finished that regional event, I was like, wow, okay, this is what I want to try to do.
Okay. And then how did you choose which school you wanted to train at to focus on that?
Well, the person who had initially brought me in, his name was Mike Willoughby. And he recognized early on during the training that I would need someone else, that he could get me to a certain level, but I really, really needed something else. And that was very insightful of him. It was awesome. Yeah. A person without ego. He just like, Arlene, I don't have the people for you to train with here. I don't have the team for you to train with here. You need more than this. And he handed me off to a coach in the Chicago area who had been on the national team several times, had been producing probably one of the highest producing Illinois State teams. He was the Illinois State coach. And then I just moved in and started training with that group. And he produced many, many national team members, 2 Olympians. He produced Juan Moreno and myself on 88, and Paris Amani. Several national team members came out of that program.
Wow, that is cool. So talk about that maybe year leading up to the Olympics, or what you were going through to Olympic trials and when you found out you made the team.
Well, so after I competed at this regionals, really there were a couple other smaller events that I went to. And the next event was national collegiates. So that you could compete as a college, as a university student, you could compete and represent your university at this event. Okay. And so it's a pretty big event. You make a national team, you make the national collegiate team if you win it. And that also allows you to compete at the world level, at the world universities. And so prior to competing at that event, knowing that I had now made the decision that I was going to pursue making the, go as far as I could in Olympic style, I sent an email or some type of correspondence. It wasn't an email then. So some type of correspondence that shared with them that I had come from NASCA, that I had, had a successful competitive career, that those NASCA events did give some type of prize money, but to secure my amateur status as an athlete, not for martial arts, I never thought I would have to secure that, but to secure my amateur status to play softball and basketball at a collegiate level, everything had been put in a special account. All the few dollars that NASCA tournaments were given at that time had gone into an account. And if they foresaw any problems for me to compete in Olympic style, that, I would like to know. I'm just letting you know I'm going to be there. This is who I am. And no one responded.
Wow.
I didn't think that they thought I would be successful. I don't think it was on their radar that someone could come from point fighting and be successful in Olympic style full contact.
That's crazy.
And so they said, sure, in a sense, they said, sure, come. We don't care because you're not going to win, I think is what their thinking was.
Wow.
So I went to National Collegiates and I won that event at UC Berkeley,
Nice.
which qualified me to go to the World Universities. And the World Universities, I won there. And I beat the current world champion in that event. And I was instantly on everybody's radar internationally, winning that event.
I would hope so, yeah.
And that's when, at the time, it was called the United States Taekwondo Union. It's now called USA Taekwondo. But the USTU at the time then went all of their energy to stop me from competing at that point.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy. Will they try to change the rules and stuff to stop you from keeping what kind of
Well,
stuff?
I went to compete at technically the first leg of team trials. You win at the state level, you go to nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I qualified as an Illinois State team member, and then I went to nationals, which was being held in Miami. And then they said I wasn't allowed to compete because I was a professional.
Wow.
And so I called back home upset and spoke to some friends, and my mom and dad called some people. And the next thing I know, a friend of ours by the name of Mark Tober had contacted some attorneys in Miami. And, 3 attorneys walked literally across several of the mats to the head table at this national event in Miami. Nice. And say, here's the paperwork. We're filing an injunction to stop this tournament if Arlene doesn't get the opportunity to compete.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty nutty. I mean, it's pretty crazy when I think about it in hindsight. It didn't register when I was going through it, but when I think about it in hindsight, it was pretty incredible.
Wow.
And so they didn't let me compete at that nationals, but they did guarantee me a hearing, and they did guarantee me if I win the hearing, I could be put directly into team trials without having to qualify at nationals.
Okay.
So I would be given a wild card.
Nice.
And so then the real work of the attorneys started. And I was fortunate enough to be connected to a gentleman by the name of Michael Docterman, an attorney who had set precedent against the Olympic Committee on numerous occasions before my case. And he called me into the office and he said, Arlene, this will be the only time that you meet with me because I'm going to get you the right to compete. But you need to be ready to win once I get you that opportunity. So you will not talk to me again. You will just focus on training and be ready for that wild card spot in team trials. And so he did his job. He was amazing. Not only was I given the wild card into team trials, I was also the attorney. Also, Michael Docterman worked out that we would be able to approve the referee list, and we would have representatives from USOC to oversee the team trial process as well. They would be there to assure that things would be fair.
That's cool. Wow.
Yeah, it was nutty. It was nutty.
Just a little bit, yeah. And then how did that the team trials go then?
Yeah, the first leg of the team trials, everybody fights round robin. I left that next step in the team trials as the number 1 seed. So the number 1 and number 2 seed go a couple weeks later and fight off for the overall team position. I fought a very formidable competitor, Heather Tallman, but I was the better athlete that day. I understand the pushback and I understand the concern. These are people who laid all the groundwork to move Olympic style Taekwondo to the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
And some of them, that's the thing about the Olympics is it's so difficult. It's not like, oh, wait till next year. No, it's wait till 4 years from now, So I understand their pushback. And I understand what it looked like from the outside, just reading about NASCA competitors. We're on the cover of magazines. We're winning diamond rings at the Diamond Nationals. And, it does look quite different from where the Olympic movement was then.
Yeah. So then once you won and found out you made the team, how did your training change at all? Or did you just keep doing what you were doing because it worked?
Well, I was very, very fortunate to have a coach. Now the national coach for the United States, the Olympic coach, is Coach Sang Lee. Mm-hmm. And although there was a very regimented training, he would always give me time to, okay, Arlene, you go and work your... And he would show his hand like pop, pop, pop with his hand, nice. Meaning my front leg, right? My front leg of pumping off my front leg that came from point fighting, which Olympic stylers were not doing at that time. So you don't, go practice. So he would always allow me to keep what was working for me.
That's cool.
But we were training. We had about a week at home after team trials, and then we reported to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. This was in June. So from June till mid-September, we were training as a U.S. team. So we were not training with our home coaches. We were training as a team with Coach Lee.
Nice.
And the training was intense. So it was 3 workouts a day. Wow. Supposed to be Monday through Friday, and turned out to be, sometimes Saturdays and Sundays too, depending on, the goals of our coaching staff. But there was long distance runs a couple times a week. There were sprint and track work a couple times a week. It was, strength training. It was kicking workouts, sparring workouts, film. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was so important. I think I want to share with your listeners is that, in order for a sport to become an official sport, really the U.S. has to be successful at it. And we didn't know it as athletes, although our coaches tried to tell us how important it was that we do well as a U.S. team for the future of Taekwondo in the Olympic family. That was a lot of the motivation from our coaches and from the support that USOC gave the Taekwondo team, is that, we want to put a sport in there that the U.S. can win or be competitive at. So it's important. If you want Taekwondo to continue to be a part of the Olympic family, this U.S. team needs to be successful. And we were, we were. The women's team was number 1 team in the world at the time after the Olympic Games. Men's team was number 2, only to Korea. So we did our job, and I don't think that team gets enough credit for it, because if we don't have that success, Taekwondo does not become an official sport and have the competitive history that it has now.
Trust me, on my show, it gets a ton. I've had, now I think you're the 4th member of that team. I've had Lynette Love, I've had Juan Moreno. So yeah, I love the 88 Olympic Taekwondo teams.
Yeah, without the success and really leadership of someone like Lynette Love, 10-time national champion, 4-time, I think, world champion. If we don't have the success that we have, again, I don't know that Taekwondo takes the path that it has.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. You guys were the trailblazers. So did you, I know you said like you before that you were talking about retirement and stuff. Did you even, after 88, did you consider 92, or did you know 88 was it for you?
No, one of the big things about 88 is that really that was the first official national team I was on. I was on collegiate team, but this was the first national team I had ever made. Mm-hmm. So there were a couple things I wanted to do. I wanted to win world championships. I wanted to win World Cup. There were other events that I wanted to win, and world championships being one of them. So in 91, that was the goal, to be a world champion. the World Championships are incredibly demanding. Where the Olympic Games, there are a set number of competitors, so you know you're only going to have 3 fights, so you're only going to have 4 fights, right?
Yeah.
But the World Championships, I had 8 fights.
Wow.
So,
Really?
and at that time we were fighting 3-minute rounds.
Jeez.
So imagine that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. So, that was truly the gem at the time, even bigger and more difficult and more prestigious than the Olympic Games.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be a world champion. And I did attempt to make the 92 team.
Okay.
It just wasn't, I never quite fit in to being a taekwondo person. And so I always, always got a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
Even after, not taking one step back in a point fighting ring or an open style ring, after I made my first decision to pursue Olympic style, I didn't take a look back. I completely dedicated myself, and I think I presented myself in the sport in the best possible way, really being grateful for the opportunities that it had given me. But I never really fit in. I was never going to be a Lynette. I was never going to be, a Herb, those folks that had come up 100% completely through that system.
Right. And you went on, you were still competing up until 99, I think?
I came back and fought again. I've been able to channel my competitive juices in other ways now.
That's
but
good.
yeah, I miss competing. I miss training for something and competing for a goal. And I was feeling great. So, I actually went to the qualifier for the United States in 2000 and secured that spot. So, yeah,
that's cool. That's really impressive. So what about teaching? When did that become something that, do you remember the first time you ever taught, and kind of where did that love of teaching come from?
So at some point I was around 12 or 13 years old. Then I was about 13 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. And my Master Thai,
Mm-hmm.
who had almost like an empire in Chicago, he had something like 15 schools throughout the city and the suburbs now. So he had exploded, but he and his wife divorced, and he lost several of the schools in that divorce. And the school that I was attending closed. Literally, one day I went there to work out, the next day the doors were locked.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was brutal. And so my dad, with me being so upset, he just laid down mats in our garage and hung a kicking bag. And my brother started running some workouts in there because he was already a black belt and teaching for Master Thai. And so we started doing some workouts in there. And then he ended up moving out to the suburbs and taking over a school out there. And I just started training on my own in my garage. Well, as it happens in Chicago, it gets pretty hot in the summer. And so I'd open up the garage door during training. And the next thing I know, I've got kind of all these kids from the neighborhood, watching me train and, peeking under the door when I lower it. And, so next thing I know, I've got, 8 to 10 local neighborhood kids in there working out with me.
That's so cool.
And so that's really where I first started teaching, is out of my garage.
Okay.
And that's really, I think, where I took it was the biggest step of growth for me as an athlete and as a competitor, because when you do things, sometimes you just do them organically and you don't know why you're doing them, or you don't understand why they work.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to teach someone why it's important to recoil your round kick,
Mm-hmm.
then it lands on you differently. Oh, shoot,
Yep.
that round kick is getting caught up because I'm not recoiling it. So there's a different type of attention I was able to put on my own physical skills by teaching people those physical skills. I don't know that I'm as successful without that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree completely that when I started teaching people, that my own martial arts improved so much on so many levels because of that. I get that 100%. How long did you do the teaching out of your garage for me?
So I taught out of my garage probably for about a year and a half, 2
Wow.
years,
Okay.
maybe about a year and a half. And then other students that were also who had lost their school.
Mm-hmm.
There were a brother and sister that were training at the school before it closed, and their dad would bring them It was hilarious because their dad owned a limousine company. And so their dad would pull up in a limousine and drop his kids off to train in my garage.
That's cool.
And he just said, I can't have my kids coming and training in this garage anymore. So I found a little place for you. Here are the keys. And it was like 1,200 square feet little place. And he said, yeah, train here, please, because I can't have my kids freezing in your garage, huddled around one little space heater and exercising. So, yeah.
Wow. And how long were you in that building then?
Yeah, then it was, was there for a couple years. And then with the help of Tom Latuli, I was able to secure a different spot. And, it just grew from there.
Wow. So then roughly how many years did you run your own school?
I ran my own school in Chicago from 14 years old to when I left to Virginia to open Power Kicks. And that was, around 1990.
What led to that decision? First of all, why was there a reason you chose Virginia?
No, at the time, Jeff Smith, very well-known kickboxer, the DC Bomber, I had gone to do a series of seminars with Charlie Lee. Charlie Lee brought me in to do some seminars on the East Coast. And Jeff Smith and his students had participated in a lot of my seminars. And he just said, I think the future of Taekwondo is going to be Olympic style. And I'd like to start transitioning some of my junior curriculum over to prepare our students to be ready for Olympic style. And would you come here and do that?
Wow.
And so I initially moved to Virginia and worked on kind of changing curriculum and being one of Jeff Smith's head instructors at one of his locations, and then just went out on my own while I was there. I was there 2 or 3 years and then went out on my own.
Okay. Talk about the idea for Power Kicks, kind of what was behind that and what was that process starting that?
Yeah, there were just a couple of us that, decided who would all come up under the Jeff Smith system and the junior system and learn the business that way. And we were just ready to do things a little different. And so three of us went our own way, and Power Kicks was born. And it was incredible. Almost 30 years that school was that I was fortunate enough to have that school. We ended up 12,500 square feet. It was a fantastic, incredible training center. When I was involved with the national team, at any given time, you could have 3 or 4 country teams being there and training, or, doing a prep camp before US Open, or, having the national team from Brazil there. The school even was fortunate enough to connect with the IOC, where we ran a solidarity program every year where coaches from across the world would come and, try to improve their skills or improve their programming and take back to their country. So, it was just happened in place for a long time.
So think back to those, first times in your garage teaching, neighborhood kids, to those 30 years at Power Kicks. Over all those years, what do you think changed the most about your teaching style?
I think I've got a lot softer, not softer in a bad way.
Yeah.
Softer in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
I'd come up, we only know what we know.
Yeah.
And, back in the 70s, things were different. And, you would not be unheard of for an instructor to, be unhappy with what you were doing in class and put you on your knuckles or, weird stuff like that. And so that's what I knew because that's how I came up. And so it really wasn't until I started focusing on really Olympic style and sport. And I was exposed to, coaching science committees and given opportunities as one of the national coaches to learn more about motivating people. I took all that in as every opportunity I was given and every program that the Olympic Committee offered me post-Olympic Games. I took advantage of it. And I just got so much stronger as a coach and as a human being, I'll tell you the truth. Just looking at different ways that we could motivate people that were different from the way I came up. And big change. When I was coming up, instructors almost wore it as a badge of honor if people couldn't pass their black belt test.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like, only 3 people have passed my black belt exam. You know, that's the kind of feeling it was as I was coming up.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Where now, you know, it was, how long can I have an influence on this person, on this student, and on this athlete? Because I want to influence them for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to kill them in 2 months.
Right.
And so it really was a completely different mindset for me.
Okay. So do you remember the very first student that you brought all the way from white belt to black belt?
Yeah.
And are they still training? Do you know?
It was my cousin.
Okay. Cool.
And yeah. He ended up joining me in Virginia and running power kicks and with me. Yeah. And Jose Santiago was also, Rob Berra. Those were my top two. And they went on to be incredible martial artists. Rob still works out quite often. Not quite sure where Jose has landed. He has struggled with some substance abuse, but yeah, I mean, but those guys took a path of, 6-7 years to get that belt.
Yeah.
As I moved through a better curriculum, a better approach at Power Kicks, it was right around, 3 years that students would, be prepared and be ready for black belt.
Okay. So talk about Pave.
Pave Prevention is an organization I took the helm of. It's a startup. We're heading into our 4th year now, so we're exiting out of that startup phase. And it stands for Proactive Anti-Violence Education. And we're tasked to creating safer workspaces and workplaces and spaces. And when I say that, it's everything that OSHA recognizes as violence in the workplace. So everything from microaggressions and bullying all the way through active shooter situations. So our curriculum is deeply influenced by martial arts. There are physical skill components and footwork and those things, but it really is also about learning to use your voice, learning to set a boundary, understanding situational awareness, understanding when you are adrenalized and how that influences your decision making, understanding what your adaptive strategy is and where you land under stress. Yeah. And it's been a blast for me. I spoke earlier about getting those competitive juices flowing again, being able to build something again. The last time I had that type of excitement was when I started Power Kicks. Wow. So having this excitement again of starting something from the ground up has been really, really exciting and fun for me.
So is that a combination of in-person training, virtual training?
We really, really have been fortunate with our clients so far, and all our clients have accepted in-person training.
Nice.
I think we landed at the right time. So we landed right as COVID was kind of ending and people were ripe for, we don't want to see one more online module. And so people embraced our in-person training. We have been fortunate enough also that the clients that we have been training in a cohort that lasts 35 hours. So we have access to them for 5 days.
Wow.
So the amount of skills and tools that we're able to impart with them and in a layered approach, we're really fortunate to have that time with them. As we move a little bit more away from COVID, we know that, we can also bring in some online training modules and things like that. So we are working, to add that to our toolboxes and to our things that we offer our clients. But we have been so fortunate to be able to do in-person training.
That is awesome. That's really cool. I know because the place I work, we had something similar, but it was online, and I tried to convince my managers this needs to be in person, and unfortunately, not all leadership sees it that way. But
it's deeply set in scenario-based learning,
yeah.
And so our clients will be able to have we access any incident reports or anything that their sector may be struggling with as far as incidents. And then we're able to develop, real scenarios that they're dealing with every day and put them through it in a safe setting, right? So they can see, I did get a little adrenalized. I did not pay attention to my distance. I did not acknowledge something that was coming in on my left. You know what I mean? So because it's deeply scenario-based learning, there's, the in-person training is so important.
Yeah, agreed. Talk about the podcast, Disrupting the Dominoes.
Yeah. So a while back, I read an article, and I wish I could find it, but the article said that on average, there are 15 different events that happen before a full-blown physical violent event.
Wow.
Okay. And so the idea of catching it, even if at 14, to stop it, or at 2, or at the 5th event. So that kind of idea also partnered with the idea that when violence is perpetrated on someone, either directly or indirectly, it sets off another series of events, right? So something horrific happens, let's just say an altercation at work with 2 coworkers. And then that person drives home, not as focused, and maybe is involved in a car accident. Or that person gets home and loses their patience after this altercation at work, now loses their patience with their children at home. Or domestic violence is happening at home and they go to work and they can't be as productive. So these other things just continue. These dominoes just continue to fall from these violent events. And we're all being influenced by it and impacted by it every day.
Yeah.
So if we could kind of disrupt those dominoes from falling, that was the idea and the name behind the podcast, Disrupting the Dominoes.
Okay. And how often do you do episodes?
We were doing them a lot and quite often. Our goal this year is to have 6 to 8 episodes this year.
Okay.
But yeah, we have gotten busy with clients. We're a small team. Yeah, I don't know that we were ready to be as successful as we are right now. And so we had a lot of things on our plate that we thought would be to create awareness of what we do. And then clients also came into view.
Yeah.
So, the podcast has taken a little bit of a back seat to the trainings that we're imparting. If I got my numbers correct, we were close to 25 cohorts last year of training, and those are 35 hours. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And the impact and the post-training data that we're collecting is just really, really, really showing that we're on the right track.
Okay, cool. And I will put a link for the podcast when the episode comes out so people can tune in and listen to it because it looks interesting.
There are several good ones out there. As you can tell, I love having this type of conversation. Yeah. And so having those conversations with people who are, making the world safer, it's been a lot of fun for me. I love that this venue.
Yeah. And those are the kind of podcasts I like promoting. So
it varies. We have people who, were a part of 2 or 3 different administrations, worked out of the White House for emergency preparedness and emergency management. Dr. Pete Margellas was that guest, where he's talking about things on, when someone is under crisis, that is you think that, we have an emergency situation. There's a hurricane crisis that has happened. But when people are going through violence, those are micro crises, right? Yeah. We're dealing with those just on a smaller level. So his approach to what we do and how we do it, he's been an advisor for us from the beginning. He's one of my black belts. But yeah, we just have some great conversations on that podcast.
I'm looking forward to it because I honestly, until we started chatting and I was exploring the website while we were chatting, that's when I didn't know beforehand that you had the podcast. So I'm looking forward to, got a couple of road trips coming up. So I'll be listening to some for sure. So
Great.
So I've been looking and searching and so far I have not found it. If it is out there, I apologize. But if not, I'm wondering when is the Arlene Limas book coming out? And I can't be the first one to ask that question. I know that.
No, you're not. You're not. And it's almost like a little bit of a running joke. It'll all come out in the book. Yep. So when someone says something, I'm like, oh, it'll all come out in the book. But I don't know if I'm ready for it yet.
Okay.
I'm still, I'm pretty busy. I am working on a book that has daily information on how to keep yourself safer.
Nice.
And so it'll be like a year of, each day has something for a year with a little suggestion on, how to move through this world in a safer way.
That is cool. Definitely let me know when that comes out, because I will add the link for that in the future so people can see that.
But I do think that at some point I will have to sit down and acknowledge the incredible things that have happened in my life. When I say incredible, I mean positive, incredible things, and then some negative, incredible things, that changed my life. I lost my house to a fire when I was 14. There have been those things as well. So at some point I will want to capture all that information.
Well, I'll be waiting for both. So over your martial arts career, is there one philosophy that stands out for you that's at the top of your list that's super important to you?
I don't know that there's one. There are a couple two of them I'll share that really I fall back on them quite often. One of them is something that my dad shared with me, and it was, you can't let your fear be bigger than your pride. And I don't mean pride in a bad way, but you can't be so afraid that you don't push yourself. I don't want pride to land in a bad way, and it's a translation from a Spanish quote, so it maybe lands different in Spanish, but so that's always like, when I find myself questioning, should I do this? Am I the right person? It's a reminder that, I'm letting my fear get ahead of what I know I can accomplish. And so that one stands with me. And then I'm really a low-key person, so sparring to hit people hard was difficult for me to grasp.
I get that.
And I happened to take a training with Mike Stone.
Okay.
A seminar with Mike Stone. And even before that, Steve Fisher, who was a coach of mine, presented many, many writings of Mike Stone to me. And one of the biggest quotes that Mr. Fisher completely really harped on me about, it's not my intention to humiliate my opponent. It is their inabilities that makes it appear so. And that was always supported by Arlene. If they could beat you 5-0 or 10-0, they would. And they wouldn't feel bad about it. So, and that got even more important the more success I had, right? Because there was a different, in a sense, bounty on competing with me.
Right.
So that idea that I train hard, I'm doing what I should be doing to prepare myself to win, and I can't feel bad about it.
Like that. All right. So as a lifelong competitor, what are your thoughts on something like the UFC? Is that something you're a fan of?
I'm more of a fan now because there's more striking.
Yeah.
But in the early days, I was not.
Okay.
Although I did have a great appreciation for the Gracies being so good that they could end events without hurting anybody, which was amazing.
True.
But, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of it, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I was a huge supporter of Duke Rufus. He grew up with Rick and I being in his life, his old brother. And so the loss of Duke Rufus is really, just had me taking a step back even more than normal from, that type of competition.
Yeah.
I feel he was one of the beacons that kept the art in mixed martial arts. But I love to see a good striker. I love to see a good kicker. I think we get more of that in the women's game.
I agree.
But they are well trained. They're dedicated people to their craft, and that should be appreciated. So yeah.
Okay. All right. I have a few fun questions we use to wrap up the interview. We were just talking about the UFC. So let's say alternate universe, you decide you're going to fight in the UFC. What I want to know is, what is your walk-up music going to be? What song's playing as you're taking that walk into the cage?
Well, my alarms every morning starts with Alive and Kicking.
Nice.
From Simple Minds. I don't know if it's charged up enough for an entrance song, but that one always resonates with me. Maybe if I needed a little more energy, Another One Bites the Dust would be a good one too.
Okay. I like two good ones. Hey, I had someone last week that I interviewed pick Frank Sinatra. So, hey, anything goes. All right. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you'd put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Wow. Linda Denley.
Nice.
For sure. Linda Denley would definitely be on there. I think, there's still this, this separation of, female martial artist, female champion. But Linda Denley, by far, is one of the greatest martial art competitors we've ever seen. So Linda would be there. I think you want to talk about people who kind of changed the game. So I think Keith Vitale is one of those people.
Okay. Yep.
He just brought a different level of finesse to the game, at least for me watching, for point fighting. There is a competitor from Mexico in Olympic style who her name is Maria Espinosa.
Okay.
She is the most decorated Mexican athlete in any sport. And so I think she's medaled in 4 different Olympic Games. So the level of consistency for like 20 years to be able to medal at that level, just incredible. Maria Espinosa in Mexico. And you're looking for one more, right?
I mean, I've had people give as few as 2 names and as many as 8. So it's kind of up to you.
I would also have to say, I think the introduction of safety equipment in our sport, in martial arts, really changed the trajectory and opened it up to so many more people. So you'd have to put Grandmaster Rhee up there.
Nice.
Not as a competitor, but just as a revolutionary for our sport. It really, really changed it all.
Yeah, I never got to meet him. I was lucky enough. I've interviewed a lot of his students, and I actually got to interview his son, which was kind of cool. So I agree with that. I got first trip ever to DC a couple years ago to go to Francis Pineda's school. And,
nice.
And he was one of my guests 2 years ago, and he showed me behind glass the original safety equipment that he invented and stuff. And that was kind of cool to see that piece of martial arts history. So
yeah, I mean, he just did so much to make martial arts more accessible to people. Where we don't get to where we are in the United States with martial arts without Grandmaster Rhee.
Agreed. All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
Wow. I mean, Dan Anderson's and Mike Stone's are anything that Dan Anderson has written, American Freestyle Karate, and Mike Stone's Eclectic Karate. Both of those were influential. Also, Roy Kerbin's book was influential when I was a kid, reading that. Okay. So, yeah, those 3.
Nice. All right, this one you may or may not have an answer for, but a favorite martial arts video game. Did you ever get into video games?
Oh, well, Cedric Tobias and the co-creator of Mortal Kombat went to high school with me. So
really?
I'm going to have to say Mortal Kombat.
Okay, that's cool. Awesome. All right, how about a favorite martial arts TV show? You can go old school or you can go new. There's a lot of stuff over the last 40, 50, 60 years. So.
I really enjoyed in the last couple of years, the series Iron Fist.
Oh, see, I like that too. Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I felt the martial arts in there was top notch.
Yeah, and so many people did not like him, Finn, as Danny Rand, and I personally thought he did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Okay. All right. How about a favorite martial arts movie?
I grew up on the Bruce Lee movies.
Nice.
So yeah, Enter the Dragon has got to be one of my favorites.
Nice.
Still.
Now, did you get to go see it 2 years ago when they re-released it for the 50th anniversary in theaters?
I've not.
Okay. That was my first time ever seeing it on the big screen, so that was kind of cool for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, final question. This one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, but any movie you've seen in your whole life, a favorite movie fight scene.
Ooh, favorite movie fight scene.
People pick anything from Rocky to Star Wars to Marvel to The Princess Bride and everything in between.
Oh, man. I just saw something that I remember talking to people about. I can't remember it now, but I was like, man, the fight scenes in here are awesome. It was a recent thing that I watched in the last couple of months. I can't remember it now.
Okay. You got me curious now.
It's escaping me.
Okay.
I mean, but I really do look at things in a couple different ways. I look at them as how can I help people with Pave prevention? Now look at that. And so how would you do that differently? How would you handle that differently?
Nice.
But then, of course, I look at it through a martial arts lens, like, oh, that really wasn't a good kick, or that wasn't really a good punch. But yeah, I wish I could remember that series that I was looking at, that I thought the fighting was pretty good. It's escaping me, Brian. Sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, I'm the same way. I analyze it. I'm like, as a martial artist, but then I also like, all right, shut off the martial arts brain and just see if it's fun to watch. And I do that too. So before I let you go, Arlene, is there anything I forgot to ask you or something we want to just get out there last minute before we wrap it up?
No, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Same with me. I seriously, I truly, truly appreciate your time. Like I said, I know how busy you are, and I love what you're still doing. I love what you're doing with Pave. That's an important mission, and I will definitely be waiting for your books, and especially the one about you. But this has been so much fun, and I think the listeners are going to love this one too.
Great. Well, thank you, Brian.
Wrap up today's episode by taking your own training to the next level with Martial Theory by Steve Perlman, the book that's redefining martial arts thinking. Find Martial Theory on Amazon today. Join the worldwide movement at martialtheoryu.com, where you'll find Q&A sessions, live events, and direct guidance from Steve himself. Use code EverydayMA for 20% off for life. That's martialtheoryu.com, code EverydayMA. Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.